Hello, I'm the creator of the Deep End, and welcome to Possibly Asked Questions 2, or Season 2, or just Possibly Asked Question 2, whatever. These are just simple things that people might or possibly ask to me when they listen to the Deep End. So, these are some things that you possibly asked me. Firstly, why'd you come back? You were pretty dead set on leaving, so why did you? It's pretty simple. I was not satisfied with season 1. I uploaded it, it was this like big process to upload all this. I was looking at it like, yeah, I finally did it. And then I just kind of let it sit for a bit, looked at it and went, this won't do. So, I was toying with the idea of returning at the beginning of the semester, but ultimately I decided to do it anyway. And honestly, I feel like it worked out, but, some people are like, are you sure you would have done it better? What if it went worse? And yeah, what if it did? But it didn't. At least I don't think it didn't. Next up, how do you do that many voices? So, between the 6 people I do, it's really hard to explain. Like, some people, they just naturally have one voice that they do and they can't do anything else. Other people actively train to do multiple voices. I just found that it's just something that comes to me. Like, I'll notice my voice changes depending on what I'm specifically doing. So, like, right when I wake up, my voice is incredibly deep, like, for a good while. Sometimes when I'm talking to people, I'm pretty dismissive with the way I speak. Sometimes, so I start like ranting into something I'm like really into. I'll start having this like nerdy inflection with it. And other times, like I'm very quiet, soft spoken, especially like when I worked like cashier jobs, I had a very soft spoken voice. So it's really hard for me to like pinpoint every single voice I could possibly do, but all I do know is that I can at least do 6, and I'm sure I could do more than that. So maybe one day that'll be turned into something, or I'll just keep it with the Deep End. We'll see. Next up, what program do you use to record these? It's very simple. Audition. Adobe Audition. That is what captures all the audio. So whenever there's some kind of like audio mistake, you can blame Audition or me if you don't think that Audition would ever steer wrong. If you want to know what program I use to stream these things, I don't know. It's whatever came with the BVZ radio station computer thing. I just use it, and that's all I know. All I do know is that Audition is what is used to record the audio, so like right now what I'm recording isn't being recorded live, so I'm already familiar with this. Why use anything else? Next up, what will happen after Season 3? So, if we're not talking like lore-wise what will happen, we're talking like real-wise, I don't know. It could just be Season 3's done, that's it. Somehow, like maybe a different studio somewhere else is like, hey, no, we want you to continue. How about you work for us? Then there could be a Season 4, but under someone else. Maybe, although chances are it would probably be under a new name, because the Deep End is BVZ Radio's thing. So I'd probably change the name into something else later, if I could think of anything clever. Or, as I said before, it could just be it. Maybe I'll get enough engagement online to warrant something else with other people, but for as it stands, once Season 3 is up, that is it. So if you are like a diehard fan of this series for some reason, then count your days, because what you get in Season 3 is what you get. Next question is, so do you do your shows for the love of storytelling or for expression? Now this is a really great question, actually told to me by one of my friends. So, I do like telling stories. That is why originally in Season 1, the original shows had those very specific stories, because those were other characters of mine that I wanted to bring into a big, fruitful life. And at that point, it was more about the stories. But then it started shifting, especially when I started considering who the characters were. I don't know if I or Xander or someone else made it fully obvious, but all of my characters, specifically DJ, Croton, Xander, Al, MM even, are all supposed to be different sides of myself. It's like if you asked what are these characters supposed to be, or even just like, hey, I noticed a lot of their designs are very similar. Is there a reason for that? At least with those specific characters, it's because they are supposed to be me. The easiest way to put it is it's my brain as a whole split into multiple people. They each have a specific attitude trait, they each have their own likes and dislikes, they each have their own way of going about life. It's easier for me to do it that way because there are times where like I'll have an opinion on something where part of me is saying, "Oh yeah, I'm for that through and through." And then another part of me is like, "I don't know if I agree with that." So, it's nice to be able to almost like track who is specifically the one saying the specific opinions or the specific likes or so on and so forth. So, especially when it comes to season 3, am I going to be more on the storytelling or the expressing? Easiest way I could put it is just I'm going to express myself through storytelling. My characters, while they may be extensions of me, are still characters that I use in their own stories. So while this may be an expression on myself and my mind and stuff like that, I'm still creating a story for other people to enjoy. Next question. Who are you, mysterious creator? Well, I'm pretty vague on who I am as a person in terms of like just name. That's why at the end of show 9 season 1 and the credits it just kept saying that guy or some dude or something like that. And that's mainly because I want to leave it a little anonymous until I'm like completely done with the shows, just for my personal safety and whatnot. But honestly, if you're that like, oh, I need to know who this guy is, I've already given you my full name. You just have to dissect the bits and parts of it. I will say, I've never given you my middle name, and I do not plan on it, but my first and last name have already been told to you, so feel free to try to guess what it is. Although, trust me, it's a lot easier than you might think. Next question. So, you've been talking about it a lot in your deep dives. So now, do you actually hate Season 1? I do not hate Season 1, but I am disappointed in how I treated it. I almost looked at Season 1 as like this perfect creation of mine that was guaranteed to get me somewhere in life. And I feel like that was unfair to it because it was heavily flawed, and most of those flaws have been ratified in Season 2, but I was still so reliant on Season 1's entire existence. Now that Season 2 exists, Season 1 has now been turned into the, like, stepping stone for the rest of it. But as it stands, it's a lot harder to re-listen back to a Season 1 show than it is a Season 2 show. Next question. Would you consider bringing others onto the show? Now, obviously, I've already done this with my professor and Dave. So, would it be possible for me to create new characters that could fill new roles? I mean, while the idea of like a new one-off character every week would sound fun, there is one major problem that I had with just my professor doing it, and that was timing. I'm not sure what my timing's going to be like for the spring semester, so it would be better for me to keep it as simple as possible, which is just myself. I do plan on bringing Dave back at least one more time, kind of as a cameo or whatever you want to call it. But if I wanted to do other people, I would rather know that the show's not going to end soon because I don't want to introduce something completely new without being able to follow it through. And the last question I have is, how would you rank Season 2's shows? So obviously, I did it for Season 1, so it only makes sense to do it for Season 2. Now, regardless of where I put them, I will say this, even the bottom show for the ranking is still, like, for Season 2, is still, like, way better than Season 1's. I don't know if I'm, like, unfairly ranking it. I'm sure some of Season 1 shows are actually, like, possibly just as, if not better than some of the Season 2. But I feel like with how I've been doing it now, it sounds better. So without further ado, sitting at number 9, or technically bottom tier, or the one I'm least impressed with, is show 6. Considering that I was trying to hype this up to be something really big and then I just ruined it all on my own, really upsets me. If I had taken the time to maybe plan it out better, not overcomplicate things, I'm sure it would have worked really great. But I didn't. And so that's why I think it's not the worst, but a lot more disappointing than it could have been. At number 8, we have Show 9. I briefly touched on it in the deep dive, but yeah, I'm really upset. Like, I did so much, like, interesting stuff with it, but I feel like I had so much, like, a much bigger idea planned for it, and I just never did it. And it just boils down to I never gave myself time to truly flesh it out. So now I'm just kind of dealing with the consequences of it. But as I said, I don't think it's the worst for it, but it definitely needed a lot more care into it. So a bunch of these next ones are gonna, like, they're in their ranking, but a lot of them could, like, be summed up in similar fashions. We have at number 7, Show 3. Show 3, the only reason it's third worst is just because I don't think it's, like, super amazing. All it was just kind of Al coming in to be like, hey, get off the beach. And they're like, no. And they're like, all right, fine, sign thing. So because of the multiple switching, while I did like it, I felt like it made it a little confusing at times, listening back to it. And plus the story itself, just, I liked what I was doing with it, or going with it, but I feel like I could have done a lot more. At number 6, we have Show 1. Finally, it's no longer in the 8th or ninth place, but I still feel like I could have done a lot more with it, but I did need somewhere to start. So, considering that I still had the entirety of season 1 behind it, I feel like it actually did a good job reintroducing the deep end. But I feel like when you compare it to a lot of those shows later down, it looks kind of lackluster. At number 5, or technically middle of the road if you want to consider it, we have Show 2. Really not much to say about it. Al was introduced. I felt like, yeah, Al's here. He's doing his thing. And yeah, just good show. Really not much I could say about it, you know? It was alright. Now at Show 4, we actually have Show 5. Now I find this interesting because I would have thought that Show 6 would be better than Show 5, but actually I feel like Show 5 was one of the better ones I did. Like, technically and story-wise, I just feel like this was a lot more. And because I did a lot more ambitious stuff with Al and interacting with the others, I feel like it actually made it a rather entertaining show. Now, it did fall from the curse of being right after Show 4, which I'll talk about later, but I still feel like it's exactly where it should be. At number 3, so now in the top 3, we have Show 8. The one where Al discovers the truth about the world they live in, yada yada yada. The only reason it's not in like 2 or 1 just boils down to it's very, like, there's no technical story, it's just backstory, but I still liked it. I just didn't give it as high because of the song choices. Al's and Xander's songs were perfectly fine. The last 2, though, I'm like, I could have done something different, but still, one of my better shows, and I'm glad it was toward the end. At number 2, we have Show 7, the Thanksgiving special, where I included Dave again. Not much to say about it. I really liked how it, once again, it wasn't really a story, it was more of a talk show, but we still played songs that were in relation to what was being said, and I got to have fun with my teacher, and it was just amazing. And I'm really glad that this was one of the better shows, because I was worried that if I messed this one up, the whole season would have been messed up. And finally, if you couldn't have guessed it, number 1 is Show 4. Maybe I'm a bit biased towards Halloween, but regardless, I feel like my sounds were on point, my voice acting was on point, the subjects were on point, just the whole thing was like, wow, how did I peak not even like middle way of the whole season? But you know what? if anything's going to be the best, it's got to be one of the top 3 holidays. Alright, and that just about does it. So, maybe one day you'll actually give me a question I can answer, and maybe one day you'll put it in the comments. But other than that, you have yourself a great day.